say old faces, some familiar faces. But I think it's probably worth doing a round of introductions. So I'm Karen Wayland. As Jane mentioned, I'm the CEO of the GridWise Alliance. I've been with GridWise for about 5 years now. Makiba, why don't you go ahead?
Hi, everybody. I am Nikiba Scott. I am the Director of Membership and Marketing for GridWise Alliance. I've been with the organization for about 2 years. I'm excited to see some old faces and some new faces here today.
I was avoiding the word old.
Oh.
Lee.
Some familiar
Yeah,
faces.
Lee.
Lee Krivak, Privat Energy Innovations. I'm on the board right now. I've been on the board on and off for a total. This will be, I think, year 10. So excited to be back.
Bauman. Good to see you.
Yes, good morning or good afternoon. This is Bauman Hoveda. I'm president of Sentient Energy, and I'm delighted to be a member of the board and looking forward to working with everybody.
Kurt.
My name's Kurt Bilas. I'm with Midcontinent ISO in DC, do government relations, and have been a part of GridWise since I think 2009. So it is old.
A long time, not old. James.
Hi, I'm James Hogg. You can call me Jim. I am the Director of Business Development for IND Technology out of Australia. We have presence in the United States and New York, and we are brand new members to GridWise.
Yeah, welcome. Yasher.
Yasher, you still may be muted here.
Sorry, yeah, it took me a minute. Yashar Kanarangi, Excel Energy, and just curious, attending here to learn more about membership.
Good. You may be aware that you were a member, and Frank Prager was a member of our board for quite a while.
Yeah, I was not aware of that.
Yeah,
actually.
yeah. Frank is just retired, but not really retired, right?
Yeah, that sounds good. Yep.
Yeah, great. Okay, so I'm going to turn this presentation over to Makiba, who's our Director of Membership, to get started, and then we'll kind of take turns going through some of these things. This is a small group. We didn't, is that it? Actually, maybe, are there other people on the other screen? No, that's it, 8 people. So we figured this would be small. This is something that we're going to be doing regularly over the course of the year, maybe quarterly for new members, and just to remind people who are interested about what the benefits of GridWise membership are. And we're open for a conversation, and we're open for your suggestions on additional things that we can do to represent the industry. I see that Monty's joined. Why don't we go ahead, Monty, and let you introduce yourself before we dive into the spiel.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Sorry about that. We don't use Zooms internally, and sometimes there's technical difficulties, so I had to drop and rejoin. I'm Monty Smith. I'm an energy field director with Dell Technologies. Russell and Boyer on the board sent me the invite just to drop in and kind of get some background on the GridWise Alliance as part of this orientation. So
excellent.
And get some info.
Hey, welcome. All right, Makiba, take it away.
Great. Thank you all so much for showing up today. We are really excited to share with you an overview of the benefits and the features of membership. We'd like for you to know how to best maximize your membership and get the most out of it. All right, so our GridWise Alliance mission is the GridWise Alliance leads a diverse membership of electricity industry stakeholders focused on accelerating innovation that delivers a more secure, reliable, resilient, and affordable grid to support decarbonization of the U.S. economy. So all of our programming and products and all of the work that we do falls under this general umbrella, which we'll learn more about later in the presentation. Our core message as a modern grid is the critical infrastructure component of a decarbonized, advanced digital economy. All right. Currently, we have 46 members, all of who are identified here. I would like to take this time to give special acknowledgement to our new members. Jim is with I&D Technology. We also have Oak Ridge National Lab, as well as SPAN. So welcome to you all. Thank you guys so much. This is our current list of our current 2025 Board of Directors. We have 25 seats on the board. Currently 24 are filled, and we will be filling the last slot for our vice chair very shortly. We generally start the nomination process for our next year's Board of Directors at the end of the summer. It's a wonderful way to become engaged in the organization and to contribute if you want to engage more. So if you are interested in board participation, you can contact me directly or just look for our comms that will be coming out towards the end of the summer. Right. And now I am going to toss back to Karen, who will talk a little bit more about our vision, our mission, and the different programming and offerings that we have, as well as the products that we create.
Thank you. I want to start by, for those of you who may not be aware of how we started. So we were born in 2003, so that makes us a 21, 22-year-old organization. As a product of DOE's Office of Electricity and Pacific Northwest Labs. It was during the very beginning of when DOE was starting to think about what a smart grid program might look like, and they realized that they needed to engage with industry in a more formal way. And so working with PNNL, they established this umbrella organization of GridWise, and then there were a couple of different parts of it, and one was the stakeholder engagement part, which was the GridWise Alliance. And GridWise, PNNL still owns the name GridWise, and so we basically rent it from them in perpetuity. And we have a very close relationship with PNNL, and it allows us to really draw on their expertise. Another reason why we're very excited to have Oak Ridge with us is that we now have another national lab with deep expertise that we can call on. So, so that's a history of where we began. One of the things that GridWise did early on was work with Congress to define the smart grid, what a smart grid is, and what a smart grid program at DOE would look like, and to help direct funding through the Recovery Act into those smart grid programs. And we've continued to develop advocacy products for federal and state work on grid modernization. We don't go into individual states because we don't have the bandwidth, and also we wouldn't dive into proceedings or legislation at the state level because we might run into conflicts between where members might be on any particular local regional issue. But we do work very closely with the groups that represent state regulators and state energy officials, so NASIO and NARUC, and work to incorporate them into any stakeholder engagement that we do, and to make sure that our products and our agendas work for what the states are thinking about as well. And then, of course, many of you are familiar with our federal advocacy work, both at DOE and on Capitol Hill. We did a strategic plan a couple years ago, and this year we're about to start the next round of a strategic plan for the next 3 to 5 years. But generally, our strategies fall into 3 buckets. One is thought leadership. How do we expand GridWise's ability to serve as a thought leader for the industry, and articulate key principles around grid modernization? The second is how do we build this ecosystem of stakeholders in the grid? And as you are all very familiar, we're not just talking about utilities and grid operators. We're talking about a whole suite of players that are becoming more and more active in this grid ecosystem. And so our goal is always to broaden our community of members with direction from the board to represent that grid ecosystem. And then finally, how do we go about stewarding GridWise itself to make sure that the organization has long-term stability? And that is working very closely with our board on both our fiduciary health, and also kind of a leadership and management issues. And overall, we're always thinking about what we can do for the industry, what we can do for our individual members, and what we can do for the individuals that work at our member companies. So next slide, please. One of the things that we think that our value is to the power sector voices are that GridWise is really a very unique voice in that we have utilities, variety of business models, the IOUs, public power, and co-ops all around the country. So different business models, different sizes, and different geographical locations. We have two of the grid operators, the RTOs. We have, technology solution providers, grid equipment manufacturers, the planners and designers and engineers that help to design the system. So it's a really unique voice that it doesn't exist at any other organization that works in our space. We do recognize and work very closely with EEI, APPA, and NRECA, NEMA for the electric manufacturers and others in the space, but we are this kind of unique combination of utilities and vendors and equipment manufacturers that provides a different kind of voice to to support grid modernization. We never get out ahead of our members, so that's why we spend a lot of time when we're developing white papers and position papers to engage our members, because we are truly reflecting our members' priorities and interests. Therefore we do a lot of convening. So we do some internal convenings where we're going to talk about the different ways that we bring together our members. And then we do convenings supported by outside organizations like DOE or the Energy Foundation to bring together the larger ecosystem of people interested in the grid. And one of the things that we think is very important is this peer-to-peer information sharing among our members. And so some of our convenings are designed exactly to do that kind of peer-to-peer information sharing. And then we want to always find ways to highlight the good work that our members are doing and showcase your case studies and your successes. And we do that in a whole number of ways, both these convenings as well as the newsletters that we put out and other things that we can do. And here we're always looking for new ways to highlight the good work that our members are doing. And so we encourage people to stay in touch with us and share your press releases, your reports, your videos, anything that you'd like us to share, because it's really important for us to help you tell your story. Next slide, please. So here's a list of the ways that we engage our members and allow for this peer-to-peer networking and educating our members on important things that are happening outside GridWise. We hold a policy council meeting once a month, and that policy council meeting is designed to bring the outside voices in. So there we like to, we've had congressional staff or members of Congress speak to us about their grid initiatives. We frequently have people from the Department of Energy talking about their initiatives. We'll have somebody from NASI or NARUC or some of the state energy interests come talk to us. But again, this is for us to learn more about the policy environment and the policy landscape that we are all working in. We also have every month a technology council meeting, and there we look to highlight innovative technology deployment case studies. And our favorite way to do that, we prefer to have these be true peer-to-peer, member-to-member discussions. They're not always this way, but generally we like to have a technology provider and a utility doing a joint case study. So a provider and maybe their customer talking to us about the kinds of things that they're doing. We try not to have them be too markety. They really are showcasing best practices and innovative deployment case studies. We have a grid investments task force that generally meets bi-weekly. They're currently meeting much more regularly than that, weekly or more. And these are our kind of our government relations people from members, where we get together and we share intelligence, we strategize about activities and positions that GridWise should take. That is the place where we start to formulate responses to say requests for information from an agency or requests for input on the potential of a piece of legislation from somebody on Capitol Hill. And then we might break out into smaller groups, but that really is the place where we're tracking week to week what's happening in Washington, and occasionally what might be happening in a particular state or set of states. And here I want to note that all of these are, we may have one point person, so a board member or another point person for any of our members, but we encourage you to make these, especially the Policy and Technology Council meetings, available to all of your staff. These are available to anybody who works for our member companies. The Grid Investments Task Force is a little bit more specialized. So we encourage you to make sure your government affairs staff are participating in these grid investment task forces. And again, we like to have multiple touch points into all of our member companies because we find it's a great way for us to provide value to our members, but also for us to make sure that we have the right subject matter experts on hand as we're discussing any given issue. We changed our bylaws a few years ago to allow for a much more quick and fluid ability to establish working groups. And so we have a number of standing working groups at any given time. I don't have to go to the board to establish these. When we see a need, we can set up a working group. We currently have a couple working groups now. We have an AI working group. We have a technology portfolio working group, and we are just about to establish one on the characteristics of load flexibility. We're actually soliciting members for right now. And these working groups help us either draft out white papers or respond to requests for information, or one of the longer term things that we have one working group do is help us develop our grid map, which we're going to show you. It's an online educational tool, and we'll show you that in a little bit. Another thing that we do is everything I've talked about is sort of inwardly focused, but we have a GridWise forum we aim to have it quarterly, and these are outwardly focusing educational webinars for the general public and for key policymakers. And there we like to showcase, if we can, mostly members, although occasionally we'll have somebody from a state or a policy organization joining us. But here we are taking a key issue in grid modernization, bringing our members' experience together and sharing that outwardly. Our next GridWise forum is next week, and it's basically recreating one of the panels that we had at Grid Connects in December, looking at the challenges of meeting load growth. So you should have information for that in your inbox. And then when we talk about thought leadership, a lot of how we've been focused on that is white papers, and you can find those white papers on our website, and they become the product in and of itself sits on our website, and we share it with people, but it really becomes an opportunity for us to get out there and talk about GridWise in our work. And so once we do a paper, we're spending a lot more time developing communication strategies around the paper. And that may include taking some of the people on the working groups, putting them in a GridWise forum that's outwardly facing, encouraging them to have speaking engagements at key industry conferences, and really as a way to highlight their work with GridWise and the thought leadership products that we're putting out there. I'll note here GridMap, and GridMap is our online resource that we have a slide on that. That's correct, right, Jane? I'm going to show that, so I won't spend any more time on that. And then, of course, our annual meeting is Grid Connects, and we've been doing it for many years. And over the last 3 to 4 years, we've had it at a really wonderful venue in Washington called Convene, and it really allows us to bring together our members and other people in the Washington area and elsewhere. We have had state people come from outside to join us. And our goal with Grid Connects is to increasingly grow the diverse attendance there. So we don't want it to just be members, although having our members there is critically important. But it's a venue not just to educate our own members, but to create content that we can then use throughout the year to educate others about key issues in the grid, facing the grid. And of course, the grid forum that I told you about next week is an example of how we're taking really awesome content that our members have helped us develop for the Grid Connects and then show it to the rest of the world and keep that beat going on Grid Connects. Next slide. One of our key products from the very beginning has been our Grid Modernization Index, or our GMI. We put out 7 GMI reports up until, and they're not annual because obviously it's a big undertaking, as well as it's not clear how much changes year to year. But what we've done in the past is look at all 50 states and rank the states based on a series of variables as to their progress on grid modernization. What we decided to do when I was using grid modernization, the GMI, before I was associated with GridWise, I always went to the back to the appendix and I looked at, okay, here are the variables that GridWise used to rank the states. If I were a state, how could I improve my ranking? And we didn't really provide a roadmap to states for actually building out their grid. And so what we wanted to do was provide more of a sort of a process for using the information that we collect in GMI in a way that helps inform decision making better. So we decided to look at the GMI in three parts. The first is that we actually publicized what we call the readiness framework, which is a whole set of questions that we're going to use when we do our actual indexing. And so that's out there ahead of time. It can also be used separately from GMI as a kind of self-assessment tool. And as we went through and redid the questions, one of the things that we did was remove what I termed as kind of exogenous variables. They might help drive grid modernization, but they weren't directly linked to it. So things like there were questions about, does a state have climate targets? Does a state have transportation electrification incentives? And those help drive grid modernization, but they're a little bit removed from it. And it also slanted the rankings towards states that had those policies. And when we look at the condition of the grid, so the number of meters deployed, or do you have SCADA systems, it tended to obscure the real condition of the grid. And so we kind of refocused the set of questions that we did. And again, when we developed this readiness framework, we did that first as a very deep stakeholder engagement within GridWise, and then outside GridWise, where we brought together NASIO and NARUC and a number of other stakeholders to help us develop this framework. And then we're diving into a much more comprehensive data collection and collection of case studies than we've ever done before. It's a little bit of we got funding from the Energy Foundation and the Department of Energy for this data collection and report effort. And we are working through the process of that right now. And we've never before made the data public, and we think that it's really critical that that the data that we collect is as important as the conclusions that we draw from the data. And so going forward, we'll make that data that we collect on grid modernization state by state public where we can. And then finally, the grid modernization report is what we see as the third individual product of our new era of GMI. And one thing that we're going to be doing differently is we're not going to be ranking states 1 to 50, which we found was only helpful if you were in the top 10. And really, what was the difference between 26, 27, and 28? So what we want to do is to provide more insights into differences among states, but in a way that doesn't sort of rank them 1 through 50. And so we're going to take the data that we collect and kind of put it into the 4 categories of readiness that we identify in our grid modernization, the readiness framework report, and kind of gives people dashboards to look at for each of the states in that line. So that's our GMI, and we expect the next version will come out middle to later this year. Another thing that came from our members, which is driving a lot of the work that we're doing, is the idea that GridWise should develop a technology portfolio. So what are the key technologies that have to be deployed on the grid in order to continue to maintain and improve reliability, resilience, affordability, and the ability to have the grid serve as a platform for other goals that states may have. So we developed a technology portfolio, and then we are sort of calling we have a paper that describes what we mean by technology portfolio, what the key functional areas are of any technology that gets plugged into the grid, and then a description, which we call one-pagers of some of the key technologies. And we've been building on that over the years with the goal that we provide these technology portfolio resources to key policymakers so they really understand the kinds of investments that have to be made in the grid in order to maintain that resilience, reliability, and affordability. So the technology portfolio was step 1. And we always envisioned, that was a white paper that we put out, which you can find on our web, but we always envisioned that the next step would be an interactive website where we could allow people to explore when they're doing Google searches, really find us and find GridWise as the key resource for understanding the grid. I will say that when we do the white papers, we try to not have them be markety. We don't like to mention specific technology names. We try not to have it feel like a marketing document, but on our website, that is not the case. We really view that as a place where we can infuse our members' work all the way through it. And so I'm going to stop there and let Jane talk about our website.
Sure, absolutely. So we can go to our next site here. So talking a little bit about GridMap, I'm actually just going to put a link to GridMap in the chat here. After this session, we will send a follow-up email that includes a link to GridMap, includes these slides that has a lot more information sort of embedded into them. But GridMap is a really wonderful new technology, right? It's the next iteration of our technology portfolio. So it's a tool that you can explore technologies in the grid infrastructure and how they support grid modernization today, but also in the future. As Karen mentioned, it's a marketing tool. We talk a lot about GridWise, about how can our benefits really enhance what you do as an individual and what you do as an organization. And GridMap is a really wonderful marketing tool for that. So as you play around with it, you see it's geared towards stakeholders. It's really interactive. You'll click on certain technologies and you will see that there's case studies embedded and a lot more information. The beauty of GridMap is that it's never done. So we're adding more technologies, we're adding more information, and we really would love to really amplify your organization. So as you take a look and you see that there are ways that you can be a part of it, you just let us know so that we can connect with you and then we can add some of your material to that resource as well. Our next slide. Great. Karen talked a bit about Grid Connects. So last year, it's always in Washington, D.C., and our theme last year was Grid Evolution from Pilot to Scale. We're developing the theme for 2025. We know it's going to be December 9th and 10th, again, here in Washington, D.C., and it's really a two-day conference that incorporates, of course, educational programming and social events, but we get really wonderful stakeholders in our attendance, but also speakers too. So Senator Hickenlooper, Representative Strickland were our speakers last year. We have a number of different panel sessions. So it is something that we are going to start planning here in the next couple of months. I would love for everyone here to take a look at last year's agenda and also view some of the sessions on YouTube so you can see really the value that this conference brings. As we are seeking out speakers and we are seeking out supporters of the event, we'll be in touch, but we would love to hear from as many members as possible at this function. I'm not going to talk too much about our membership structure here. Really, the most important pieces are our full membership and associate membership. Really, full membership is for business entities. Associate membership might be for government entities and nonprofit organizations. There's some nuance in the benefits that are associated with that. But I think that, very tactically, I think that we'll talk a little bit about what's next and how that next steps where you can get more engaged is that just sort of keep in mind as we're going through a little bit of a membership dues tactical structure change in that perhaps you would receive an invoice from April to April. We're actually going to move everybody so it's easier for you on your end and your planning purposes that it's going to be moving from January to December. So we've sent out some information about that change, but just know that you'll receive a little bit more information as we move forward on how our dues are collected at that time. And our next slide. I'm just going to talk briefly about next steps and then really toss it back to Karen to finish it up. So a couple things. Karen mentioned that, we definitely want to hear from you in a number of different contacts and points throughout your company. So not only just your government relations folks, but we want to make sure that all people in your company have the ability to join our council meetings. Please let us know who might be really able to take advantage of the GridWise membership because we are here to support you. We have volunteer opportunities, becoming members of our ad hoc committees, our working groups, our councils, perhaps even board service could be a part of that. Save the dates. We talked about Grid Connects. We haven't talked about our annual fly-in, which is our very first fly-in that's going to be happening June 9th and 10th here in Washington, D.C., which is going to be really exciting to sort of put together. So you will receive some more information about that And then, of course, the best way to get information from us is to check your inbox. We do have a monthly newsletter, and also follow us on social media. So GridWise Alliance is available on LinkedIn, and we'll send you all an invitation to go ahead and follow us. But is there anything that you'd like to add to that, Karen?
Yeah, I would say that when we think about who might who within your organizations you might want to connect with us, we maintain a separate list of communications and marketing people, because and then we have a list of the government affairs people. What we found is that, you know, when we were having Hill meetings as we were developing the infrastructure recommendations, when the point of contact that we were sending information to was the government affairs person, that was the person that company usually showed up when we had a member meeting. And and when there was somebody who say was a grid engineer, they might not have realized how important that meeting was, and so that company might not have shown up. When we were requesting information to highlight on a particular issue, so we could sort of put it on the web, and here's what our members are doing in resilience. If we had a marketing person, they might have their hands on the latest marketing materials that a company or member company has to promote the work they're doing on that issue, and then we would get a report from them, and maybe not necessarily from another company. So what we found is that we have multiple touch points across the work that a company is doing. We actually can help represent you better and learn more from you as well. So we encourage you to kind of connect us with your marketing and communications people, connect us with your government affairs people, and then as many of your subject matter experts as you would like, get them on our list so they can join our technology and policy council meetings. I think that's probably it.
That is, we do have a little bit of time here. If there are any questions, please feel free to come off mute. We always want to hear directly from our members about how we can best support you.
Really no questions. Thank you for very informative information. I appreciate it. One of the things I didn't know is that we could get other folks in our companies involved on the
Please.
technical sides, which
Yep.
is quite good to know.
Yeah, I mean, all of our white papers have been written with the subject matter experts from our members. And so they may not be necessarily the person who participates on a regular basis on other things that we do, but when we have a particular issue, our contact person will go out and find the subject matter expertise, who then gets, does the working group for however many months it takes us. And it's generally not that much work. And then we often will find opportunities to have them be key speakers on the issue. So it, gives some higher profile to your company and that person as well. So yes, we encourage the more the merrier. I don't think we have a limit on our Teams calls, or we haven't come close to hitting it if we have one.
Sure. Do we have any presence at Distributech? Do we have a booth there at all, or?
Good question. We need to add that to our list. We last year was the first time that we actually had a big presence, and we don't have a booth, but many of our members do. And so what we do is we go booth to booth, introducing ourselves to people that we don't know, and asking them to show a little placard on their booth that says that they're a proud member of GridWise. We have lapel pins that people can wear if they're so inclined. And I spoke last year at a couple times. I'll be speaking this time and also moderating a panel. So yeah, we recognize that it's a great place both for us to get to know more of our members as well as to do recruiting.
Great.
Any other questions or comments? All right, so as we mentioned, we will go ahead and send out the slides as well as any pertinent links. Karen mentioned GridWise Forum is happening next Friday, so if you haven't received the registration link, we'll go ahead and make sure that's in the email as well. But please feel free to reach out to us if there's anything we can do for you or any ways that we can support your organization. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.